Well, it started like a rumor initially, and then much later we saw that it wasn't a rumor. It was true that a famous super cop here in Nigeria, DCP Abba Kyari, who is now suspended, was indicted in the FBI investigations, which have now been unsealed by a court in the United States. Initially, the DCP did issue a statement of sorts on his Facebook page saying that he didn't know, he knew Hush Puppy and that he had helped him in a case of allegation of threat to life of his family members here in Nigeria. But then it turned out that there was a little more to it than that. Of course, there's also the story about tailors making clothes, his tailor making clothes for Hush Puppy. There have been huge questions as to, how that relationship progressed even further. But this is where we are now. Yesterday, it was revealed that the DCP has been suspended, or 2 days ago, that information came in. And yesterday, it was seen that new shoes or new people, a new person, beg your pardon, has been appointed to fill his position, at least as we speak. So, in the meantime, the DCP is on suspension from the police force. So people have been asking, what should happen? He's definitely innocent until proven guilty. Is there enough to warrant the FBI to seek his arrest? What should be the stance of Nigeria on this particular matter? Joining us right now to shed a little more light on this matter is Mr. Mike Ozekhome, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's right here in our Abuja studios. You're welcome to Sunrise Early this morning.
Thank you very much, Mokwe.
And we also have Mr. Richard Ivie, who is of the Corruption Observatory and Public Awareness Initiative. He joins us via Zoom in Lagos. Mr. Richards, if you can hear me, welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. But let me quickly come to you, Mr. Ozekhome, and ask you what your impressions were of this particular matter. The moment you heard of it, a matter like this in the United States, we saw when it broke and how the matter has developed months later. This is what we're seeing. It's now been, the net is now being dragged wider to now involve a senior police officer here in Nigeria, a well-decorated cop. What were your initial impressions of that matter?
Yeah, my initial impression about the matter was first one of surprise, then later of shock, because I've only met him just twice. And that was in January 2019, when the police, in the most brutish manner, put Dino Melaye under house arrest, cut off his light, cut off his water supply, and his source of everything, and said they were trying to force him out. And Dino Melaye insisted that until he saw me, his lawyer, he would never come out. Even if they wanted to kill him, they should go ahead. So I had to fly down from Benin to Abuja, and I went in, and I saw Dino Melaye, and he said he would come out now that he knew I was around. And the leader of the delegation, incidentally, was Abba Kyari. And I told him that I didn't want the matter to assume unnecessary media hype or media trial. The issue people believed Dino had committed an offense, charge him to court, or no need for any media trial. And he quietly agreed with me. I said, sir, we will not. We will even quietly put him in the car to go with us to the police area command. And they drove the car in, and Dino quietly entered. And we all drove to the police headquarters. The rest, as they always say, is history. So I found him very personable, very professional, very educated, and very gregarious. So naturally, when I heard about this, I was taken aback because I had always looked at him from the professional angle. That, yeah, this is a man also when he also bust the crime ring of Evans in Lagos and others, that, yeah, these are the kind of super cops we needed. So I was pretty surprised. But all these things I'm hearing that FBI has issued a warrant of arrest, they will just come to Nigeria and pick him up. It's not done. Nigeria is not a banana republic. It's not going to happen. This is not Entebbe raid of July 4, 1976, during the counter-terrorism rescue mission by the Israeli military command to free hostages. This is not the Umaru Diko Cretin episode of July 3, 1984, when under the Buhari government, Umaru Diko was to be created back to Nigeria. He was drugged by the Israeli Mossad and taken to the airport. Nigeria Airways flight went to Hampstead Airport, London, and the man was already prepared to be created back to Nigeria, but there was a snag. And the snag was that under Section 27 of the Vienna Convention of 1961, any diplomatic bag must be labeled. But this was a special diplomatic bag, which was not labeled, contrary to what the government of Nigeria has said. That put the Scotland Yard on suspicion, only to open the crate and discover that Umaru Diko had been completely drugged. So they got him released. About between 24 and 27 people were tried and convicted and jailed over that episode. So as we go on progress in this discussion, I will be able, hopefully, outline the step-by-step scenario by which a person can be extradited from one country to another under the Extradition Act of Nigeria, laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. I think that's my first intervention.
Well, there definitely will be questions as to what process that is going to follow. But so far, what we have seen is that the police has taken steps. They've ordered an investigation internally within the Nigerian police force. And then we've also seen the suspension. We don't know whether that is temporary or not, especially when we consider the fact that somebody else has not been appointed in his position. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Mr. Ivie Richards, on this particular matter, because some people are saying, so far, so good, it looks like Nigeria has taken the right steps. Do you agree with them?
I think that the national mood concerning this issue is just one, and it's like a unified one. There's been an internal investigation already instituted, and that has to come out. The result has to come out before even the processes for extradition, if at all, will take place, should commence. The fact that the FBI did their own investigation, indicted him and all of that, does not mean that the Nigerian authorities will not, on their own, do what is necessary. So I think that these things are being followed chronologically from one step on to another, and eventually we will see what the result will be. I think that the steps are being positive and they are being followed the way it ought to be followed. But I don't see Nigeria just releasing Kyari to the U.S. authorities to be prosecuted in the U.S. just like that.
Oh, do you fear that could have implications for our own internal investigation or our own judicial processes?
Certainly, Abba Kyari will not just be released to the U.S. authorities. I mean, as my brother Ozekhome said, Nigeria is not a banana republic. We are the most populous black nation on earth, with all the intelligence and all of that at our disposal. You won't come here to tell us that you've indicted one of our own and then just like that, we put him in a truck and hand him over to you. I am sure that there are agreements between the US and Nigeria, and those agreements have steps that have to be consummated. But first and foremost, we will need to do our internal investigation, ensure that what the FBI found out is also what we have found out here. And based on that, we begin to consummate what the process of extradition is all about. So it's a long process that I just started. And I don't think that Nigeria would just like that release Abba Kyari to the US authorities. That won't happen because it has already become an issue that every one of us is interested in, and everyone is keenly looking at what the outcomes would be at the end of the day.
I do not know if you had the opportunity to read through the investigations, but from what dimension do you think that the internal investigations will be starting from?
How do you mean?
Well, it would seem that the investigations which they carried out were pretty detailed, at least from what was unsealed by the U.S. court. I don't know what area you think that the Nigeria police is going to be starting its own investigation from, and perhaps how long you think the process is going to take.
Investigations are normally detailed and they can take quite a long time. It will depend on the circumstances of the issue. I believe they'll be looking at the relationship between Hush Puppy and Abba Kyari. They will look at the fact that monies was exchanged in the first place and why monies was exchanged. Every detailed investigation should be made. I don't think that there's going to be any kind of abuse or a cover-up, because the entire world is watching. And again, very seriously, this is something that can rubbish the anti-corruption war of the country. So I think the government is watching, citizens are watching, professionals are watching, and everyone involved in this case will be very careful that all detailed steps are taken before anyone is eventually indicted in Nigeria.
Well, you and Mr. Richard seem to be agreed that Nigeria is just not going to give up its citizen easily like that to the United States because of an FBI investigation. Why are you so certain?
Yeah, let me tell you this. Between Nigeria and the US, there's an extradition treaty which was signed in 1931 but came into being in 1935. And it has to do with offenses like money laundering, advance fee fraud, terrorism, and all that, but not covering matters of a political nature. For example, between Nigeria and Togo, Republic of Benin, and Ghana, there is the 1984 extradition treaty. For example, that would be the law under which Igboho's case will be looked at. Between Nigeria and South Africa and some other countries, there are also treaties. So everything is going to be in accordance with that treaty. It is not a global law. Extradition is not a global law that simply says everybody can do this. It is what is your understanding with that country. And it is that you must follow. For example, in the 50s and early 60s, there was an extradition treaty already in existence, extradition treaty of 1881. So in 1962, the action group crisis came into the fore in Nigeria. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the late sage, and Chief Anthony Nahoro, the man who had moved Nigeria's motion for independence in 1953, before it was finally granted in 1960, were actually railroaded and detained for what they called an Awo-led coup d'etat against the government of Alhaji Tafawa Balewa. So Anthony Nahoro found his way through Ghana and ran to London. While there, the Nigerian government decided that he must be extradited under this 1881 extradition treaty between Nigeria and Great Britain or UK. What happened? Harold Wilson had just taken over the mantle of being the leader of the Labour Party. That was in 1963. So he was able to garner some members of the Tory and a vociferous press, as the Nigerian press is currently doing, to say, no, you could not extradite Chief Anthony Nauro because he was being wanted for political-related offenses. Harold Macmillan, the then Prime Minister, was also fighting to ensure that he pleased the Nigerian government to extradite Chief Anthony Nauro. Eventually, he seemed to have won the war, and Chief Anthony Nauro was extradited in 1963 back to Nigeria. He was tried for treason with Awolowo and others, and he was jailed for 15 years. It was when Gowon came on board in 1967, after the counter-coup against Major Kaduna Nzogu Chukwuma's 15 January 1966 coup, that he gave pardon to them and made Chief Obafemi Awolowo the vice executive chairman of the military council, and Chief Anthony Nauro, I think, was made minister or commissioner for information or establishment, I can't remember. But the important thing is that in this very case, irrespective of whatever investigations FBI may have done, they may be the best super police force in the world. That is of no moment when it comes to how Abba Kyari will be handed over to them. You must now come back to the extradition treaty and the extradition law of Nigeria, Extradition Act of 2004. And the provisions are that they must first, that's the US government, must first make a formal written request through their envoy here, their consular office, that look, we want this man back to America. They must state the offense he's alleged to have committed in America. If he had been jailed or had been tried and jailed, they must attach a certificate of conviction. Then they must put the extract of the law in their own country in America, which also allows extradition, and which shows that this offense is being accused of is also an offense in the United States.
In other words, he can be tried and jailed in absentia?
I very much doubt so, because he has to be extradited.
If you say if he has been convicted, is there a previous conviction or what?
Yeah, no, if he had been convicted in Nigeria, for example, they can no longer ask for his extradition under Section 3 of the Extradition Act, because it can plead what you call outre for acquit or outre for convict, which means, look, I have been tried and acquitted for this offense before, or I have been tried and jailed for this offense before, and taking me again to the United States will amount to double jeopardy against my fundamental rights under Section 36 of the Constitution. So the Attorney General of the Federation, under Section 6 of the Extradition Act and under Section 174 of the Constitution, has a crucial role to play. If they really want to, for example, to save Nigeria's image or to help Abba Kyari not to be subjected to an unknown procedure, the Attorney General is to take over the entire matter. Look at the reasons Abba Kyari is being wanted. Are you satisfied that he's being wanted not for a political offense, not for his religious belief, not for his gender, not for his religion? Are you satisfied that there are laws there that will grant him fair hearing? Are you satisfied that when he comes here, he will just be detained and promptly tried? He will not be put through unnecessary long, prolonged detention? Are you satisfied that the laws under which you want to try Abba Kyari, you will not subject him to a different genre of laws when you eventually get him there? Are you satisfied? When the Attorney General is satisfied with all this, under Section 6, then he approaches a magistrate court. Or under Section 251 of the Constitution, he approaches a federal high court judge to say, issue a bench warrant or a warrant of arrest against Abba Kyari. Abba Kyari will then now be detained. And he has within 2 weeks, 15 days, to now extradite Abba Kyari. But if the magistrate or judge discovers that certain prerequisites, certain things that ought to be done have not been fulfilled, he can refuse to issue the warrant, or Abba Kyari can go to court and nullify the extradition process. That is why, if you remember, the Senator Buruji Kashamu extradition brouhaha took place for more than 5-6 years, and they were never, ever able to extradite him to America, in spite of this 1935 extradition treaty that exists between Nigeria and America. So it is not a wham issue, as some people are thinking that FBI will just come into Nigeria, pick up Abba Kyari like a common criminal, and then take him away and say, hey, you are going to America. It's not going to happen. It never happened before, and I do not believe it will ever happen, because Nigeria is a sovereign state, and that sovereignty of Nigeria must be respected within the boundaries of Nigeria. So if, for example, America is not satisfied with the way Nigeria is handling the matter, they can protest, or they can have what you call maybe diplomatic freezing of certain areas being aggrieved. So Abba Kyari, for now, is safe under Nigerian law, is entitled to his protection under the fundamental human rights of Nigeria, particularly Section 36, that presumes his innocence. The Nigerian criminal justice system is accusatorial. It is Anglo-Saxon based, by which we mean that the innocence of a person is presumed. It is not the French model, where you presume a person's guilt and then tell him to come and prove his innocence. Like I always say, even God himself gave Adam and Eve a fair hearing in the Garden of Eden. Even though being omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, he had already seen, beheld the sin being committed by Adam and Eve by eating of the forbidden fruit. But he still had them out before he decided to say, Adam and Eve, you are guilty. And then he went on to convict them and punish them. It happened long ago in the Garden of Eden. So I do not see what has changed. So Abba Kyari, for now, enjoys his constitutional rights in Nigeria as a Nigerian citizen who cannot simply be deported just like that.
Well, some people say what has changed is social media. I mean, that's where we've seen a lot of people air their views on what they think should be happening right now. I'm wondering, Mr. Ivie Richards, how you are reading this particular matter. So far, so good. It looks like this is going to be a lengthy process. But how can Nigeria continue to show its commitment to upholding the rule of law and also ensuring that its image where there will be no protection for people who have gone against the law, is upheld? What are your thoughts on that particular process?
Straight ahead, I think it's by upholding the rule of law, being accountable, being transparent in all that we do. Listening to the senior advocate and the point that I also hold does not mean that we're saying that Abba Kyari should be shielded even when he's guilty. That's not the point that is being advanced here. The point being advanced is that there's a process, and that process must be completely followed. Forget about what you see on social media, the court of public opinion and all of that. There is a system, there is a process that has to be meticulously followed through. And if at the end of the day, that process is followed and it is proven that this man actually, is found guilty of the allegation that has been leveled against him, then of course the process again of extradition would commence. So essentially, it's like you said, it's not a bad thing. It's not you just come here, you say your citizen did this and give him to us, and then in one swap is handed over to you. No. Nigeria, again, and I repeat that he has also said, is a sovereign state. We have our own laws, internal laws, and all of that must be laid down, and the allegation laid parallel to that, assurance gotten properly that, look, there is the need to extradite him before the process ever starts.
Well, let's take a break at this point. When we come back, I'm sure my colleague Ayo will have questions for you, gentlemen. Please stay with us. Yeah, we're still on the matter of DCP Abba Kyari, who's now been suspended, and the investigations carried out by the Federal Bureau of Investigations in the United States. Joining us to shed light on the circumstances which might involve his extradition to the U.S. is Mr. Michael Ozekhome, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, and also Mr. Richard Ivie, who is Executive Director of the Corruption Observatory. He is joining us from Lagos via Zoom. And I'll throw this now to Ayo, who certainly has questions. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Malpe. Let me begin with Mr. Ozekhome. Part of the matters arising in this issue, in the case at hand, is this comment ascribed to a commissioner of the Police Service Commission who is in charge of media. Please take a listen, sir.
It has become the trend that most of our crime fighters have, in one way or the other, always ended up in the negativity. It is so sad. But it is not right, too, for us to jump at conclusion that he's guilty because he has not been tried under Nigerian laws yet. And I think we have so many hurdles we need to cross before we conclude that DCP Abba Kyari is actually guilty. Yes, we've heard the allegation that the U.S. court has indicted him. We probably heard that he was not indicted where he has an arrest warrant was issued, and but not yet from a Nigerian court or our judicial system. We need to subject that and to the indictment to our own system, and to be sure that yes, he is actually guilty of those offenses. And if he's found guilty, it's very unfortunate. And I also trust that he will liaise with the Attorney General of the Federation while doing this, to get the substance, to arrive at the legal substances of these accusations and to establish the culpability of the officer in charge or concerned. And I'm also sure that by the time he gets these facts right, he's going to refer the matter to the Police Service Commission, that whose authority it is to punish. And for now, the IGP has reacted properly, and I think we're satisfied with the decision has taken and what he's doing. Punishments for crimes vary. When a police officer commits infractions on the service code, so warning, then a reprimand, severe reprimand, reduction in rank, and outright dismissal. These are the penalties that we can impose on any serving officer from the rank of Deputy Inspector General of Police to a constable in the police.
Well, you've spoken largely, gentlemen, to the latter part of the comments of Mr. Braimon, but the initial part of what he said, Mr. Ozekhome, that it is sad that most of our crime fighters end up in negativity. The fact that it has become a trend is what interests me here, and it speaks to a lot of things. What do you think, if you agree with him, could be responsible for this trend?
I think it is the outbreak of the social media, especially, which was not there maybe about 10 years ago. Now, police acting even within their cubicles, you can now see them, their actions being reported almost verbatim, almost like a soap opera, almost like a television reality show. It didn't used to be like that at all. And Nigerian super cops, many of them, again and again, have beaten the dust, even after being heavily decorated and heavily celebrated. I think in itself, it has to do with the rot, the systemic rot in the larger society itself, because these police officers are themselves part and parcel of this larger rot. But I want to agree with him, the Secretary of the PSC, Police Service Commission, that they have disciplinary control over police people under Section 6 of the Nigeria Police Service Commission. They can hire, they can train, they can post, they can discipline, they can fire, they can, as it were. That is their job, but it ends there. And it is because of that they had the power to suspend Abba Kyari for now, whilst allowing police to do their investigation. Because if you are holding the yam and the knife, there's no way you can be investigated. So it's a way of saying, give us the knife so that we will be in a position to investigate you thoroughly and transparently. But it ends there. For example, the Police Service Commission cannot mete out a punishment if they find that a crime has been committed. Indeed, if they dismiss him, by the way, only the Inspector General of Police under sections 214 and 215 of the Constitution is not subject to appointment or discipline of the Nigerian Police Service Commission. If they find, for example, that Abba Kyari, from their investigation, has committed a crime, all they need to do is to hand him over to the Attorney General of the Federation, like I said, under Section 174 of the Constitution, who also have the power under Section 6 of the Extradition Act to now deal with the matter. They themselves, if they go ahead to quickly dismiss him based on having found him guilty, and that these are the technicalities people do not understand in laws. You cannot, as an extrajudicial body, which is not a recognized court of law under Section 6, subsection 6 of the Constitution, mete out punishment or convict a person for a criminal offense. That has been established long ago. Even students of a 100 level law are taught, of constitutional law, are taught the case of Demloye versus legal practitioners, disciplinary committee, and Garba versus University of Maiduguri. I had some input in that case when I was still in Ghanaian chambers in the early 80s. In other words, if you find that a person has committed a crime, you cannot base a dismissal on it because you are not a court of law to find a person guilty. What do? You hand him over to the relevant law enforcement agencies for them to prosecute. If at the end of the day, the person is found guilty, then you can now dismiss him based on that court judgment. Not you, as a service commission, usurping the powers of a court of law. Is not possible at all. So I think it is this social media, interpersonal relationship, the fact that the system is rotting, so systemically rotting, that we have left our values, our ethics,
my apologies.
Those things that
my apologies, sir.
Unite us together and advance the cause of us.
Yeah, that's really, the troubling thing. I mean, when you say that the system is endemically, rotting and all of that, I'm just wondering if, policemen, of course, are products of the same society, but isn't it part of the laws and a part of the system as well to create laws, rules, policies, codes of conduct that's supposed to guide, police officers, law enforcement agents generally, to behave in certain ways? The legal profession has its code of conduct. So does the police, and this is without, consequence, with due regard to the fact that yes, the society may be, the way it is, but then these codes of conduct are supposed to say that some are supposed to be a little bit above in their conduct, especially of their professional duties.
I do agree with you totally. The certain categories of people like the police, whose duty is to detect, prevent, prosecute crimes, and also protect all of us, ought to live above board, like Caesar's wife, like we put it. They have a code of conduct. Check the Nigeria Police Act of 2020. Check the various police regulations. They are there. What you should not do, they are there. The problem in Nigeria has always been not the non-availability of copious laws. It has always been our inability to enforce those laws when breached. When Cain killed his brother Abel in the Garden of Eden because his brother's sacrifice was acceptable to God, and God asked him, Cain, where is thy brother? He looked at God, eyeball to eyeball, and asked him the question rhetorically, am I my brother's keeper? But he was punished. Do we punish for offenses here? In America, for example, if you beat traffic, they will not seize you as we do here in a rough manner and seize your car, impound your car, do all those. They will just smile. You drive away, go your way. But beating that traffic was immediately recorded on the traffic machine regulator by that junction. In the next 2 or 3 days, they will send you a bill. The bill may be $70 or $150. You beat traffic a second time, they smile. They send it to you again because they are seeing the time you beat the traffic. It is written there, the dashboard, how you were driving. By the time you do it 3 times and you pay another $250, next time if you see traffic 500 meters away, you will even stop. You won't even want to go near it because there are consequences, there are penalties for breach of this code of conduct. In Nigeria, the problem is when you now want to subject, for example, a senator to punishment, a police officer to punishment, a member of the House of Representatives to punishment, a governor to punishment, then it's kings and kids. They roll out the drum, they come, they say, oh, we are being persecuted. This is one of us. They don't want him there because he's one of us. So suddenly, you see a validation, a ululation of crime. You see crime being celebrated, being edified. So the issues are left. They are going after the messenger instead of the message. So I believe that the police is such a sensitive institution that they should abide by the code of conduct that is already there. Don't collect bribe. Don't commit crimes. Don't join hands with a complainant or a victim to extort money from the other person. They are there. And then, of course, they are subjected to the Nigerian Criminal Code and the Penal Code, the provisions of the Advanced Fee Fraud, the Money Laundering Act, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and various laws, Terrorism Act. They are not the president or vice president, governor or deputy governor that have immunity under Section 308 of the Constitution from civil or criminal proceedings. So I think we should up the ante in Nigeria in terms of law enforcement and then law prosecution of violators. And then, of course, meting out appropriate punishment to those who have been found to have violated the law. But I'm not one of those, and I must make my point clear, who believe in social media, public mob lynching trial. I've always been against it, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and forever. In spite of Magu's transgressions, even when he was detained, I came out with a public statement that they must accord him his constitutional right to fair hearing. He should not be tried in public, the media. He should not be named and shamed, even for minor. If you have committed an offense, let the person have his day in court. Don't subject the trial court, for example, to undue duress and feeling that, oh, this is how the mind of the public is already going. Therefore, let me fulfill all righteousness and be politically correct, judicially correct, and going with them. We should leave them. Abba Kyari has been accused of offense. FBI has made its own investigation. They have made the matter public. They unsealed it on the 29th of July in California. Justice Ortiz to say he has committed such and such an offense. But those have to be subjected to the Nigerian judicial process through the Attorney General of the Federation. They cannot do it by themselves. They cannot be a judge. in their own cause, and then the prosecutor and also the jailer. That is the position of the law. It's not about sentiments. It's not about lacrimal effusion. And we are not defending Abba Kyari to say he has done it or he has not done it.
All right, let me ask
an issue of trying to exonerate him.
Yes. Let me ask Mr. Ivie Richards, one of the things that's also played out, in all of these conversations over time is that there have been cases where certain persons, including this, the man called Hush Puppy, they have or have not been investigated in Nigeria, and they were only arrested outside Nigeria. This gentleman is one. The case of former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, is another, who went through our systems and they were discharged and acquitted, only for them to be, arrested, accused, and jailed in some cases in foreign, courts, foreign nations and all of that. In what way do you think this undermines or promotes or vilifies, I don't know what the word would be here, Mr. Ivie, our system in the administration, especially of criminal justice?
Well, it's clear, very, very clear, that in the 3 tiers of government, the legislature, the judiciary, the executive, the corruption is rife. Those cases you cited happened before our very eyes. And one begin to wonder why it should happen like that. I remember very clearly the report that was made by the ICPC, I think it was last year or the year before last, concerning the judiciary. That the judiciary tops the corruption ladder in Nigeria. It was a Nigerian corruption percentage index that the ICPC issued. And at about 9.4, 9.7 billion has been paid, was demanded for and paid by lawyers to judges and all of that. So it's shameful. It's an act that is actually negating the anti-corruption war of this administration. And it's something that it shows that the system is very weak and porous. And let me even say this. A situation where a company would come from the Northern Pole overseas, Europe or America or something, to come and do contract here. The contract is being executed in maybe Bayelsa or Kano or somewhere. And this company will insist that arbitration should be in their home country. And shamefully, government will append signature and say, yes, let the... See, that's to show that in Nigeria, the court, the judge, and everything can be bought by money. It's about the highest bidder. So I think that the systems need to be strengthened and to restore respect and confidence in the judiciary. But much more than that, let me speak to the fact that all over the world, really, crime fighters suffer. They suffer. What do you call that word now? They say when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. So from that backdrop, I look at the person of Abba Kyari and a super cop and all he's been trying to do to see that kidnapping, banditry, and all of that comes to a manageable level in Nigeria. And all of a sudden, it's being fingered by none less an organization than the FBI. It brings some things fresh in my mind concerning the Jonathan administration, for instance. We, behind the scene, knew that one of the greatest offenses it committed was promulgating the local content law, which was like a slap, at the face of the Seven Sisters. When I say the Seven Sisters, I'm talking about Shell, I'm talking about Total, I'm talking about Ajip, I'm talking about, you know them, the Chevron and all of that, represented by their home governments. And, linking that to the case of Babangida, Babangida's major offense really was instituting the ECOMOG. ECOMOG showed that Nigeria could actually lead Africa, without any input from people from Europe and all of that. And because of that, the evil of SAP was inflicted upon us, and the economy had been comatose since then till now. So when you hear about the CIA, about the KGB, about all of that, it's about the national economy. At the end of the day, it boils down to dollar, naira, and kobo, which is why I want to challenge our intelligence agencies, the DSS, the NIA, to be up, and they should do much more than they are doing right now. And
just one thing, Mr. Ivie, just one question. Yes. You have said, a little more of what Mr. Ozekhome said. I'm just wondering, based on what he said, and which I believe you have also agreed, is it to say then that the system, rotten as you both have said, is rigged against a super cop who, according to Mr. Ozekhome and Mr. Braimor, they always have to go into negativity after being so highly decorated? Is the system rigged against them?
That is what we must confirm. That is the point I'm trying to make. We must confirm that, because that possibility exists. Don't forget that in any polity where you have transparency and accountability, you're going to have economic development. And when you have corruption and all the negative, you are going to have underdevelopment. But be it known to you that man eats man. Nations eat nations. They don't eat nations bodily. They eat of the fruit of their labor. And when you hear about donor-assisted programs in Nigeria, the DFID and all of that, I don't believe in all that crap, because America at no day, even the UK, wants you to be at the same level that they, are existing currently. They want you to be perpetually subservient. This is the fact of the matter. So when one of the best of us is being indicted, it behoves on us to scrutinize this issue properly to ensure that this system is not being rigged against one of the best cops in Nigeria. That's the point I'm making. Because at the end of the day, it's about national development.
Interest might be important and definitely should take precedent over anything. Some people will ask us to define what national interest should be in this particular matter, and how, we should uphold. I don't know whether national interest will be going against rule of law, or rule of law will be going against our fight against corruption. I don't know what your thoughts are, but if you were to listen, if you were to take any inference or draw any inference from what Mr. Richards has said, or Mr. Ivie has said, what would you be advising the Nigerian government to do as we speak?
My own, I'm very rule of law compliant. Every Nigerian knows about that. I'm for due process. I don't believe in a lynching mob action game. Even if you check the Bible, Exodus 3-6, you will see the peace treaty or the silver treaty between Hattusili, the Hittite king, and the Egyptian despotic king, Ramses III. You find that everything was being done under due process, under scrutiny. All this so-called national interest is, to me, is always a flag that is waved by people in government where they want to do things that please the government. National interest is not equivalent to government interest or the interest of the present government. And national interest and government interest, all of them must be subjected to rule of law, because that is the first thing that determines who we are as human beings, Homo sapiens, different from animals. That takes us away from the forest of the Herbacean state of nature, where life was solitary, poor, nasty, and brutish. That makes us, in fact, fundamental rights are said to be inalienable because they are innate in us as human beings. It's not the Constitution that gives them to us. So whatever they want to do against Abba Kyari, I do not want to be judgmental. to say he's guilty or he's not guilty. I am calling for proper due process. Give him a fair hearing. Make available to him the documents from FBI.
Yes.
Let him respond to them one by one.
So just, I mean, drawing on what my colleague already did say, our history, given how we have, dealt with a number of issues that also had to do with the FBI and corruption issues at that, are you confident that this is going to turn out different?
The world is watching. I believe that because of public interest in this matter, the world will want to see how the government will handle this matter. The role of the Attorney General is extremely critical. In fact, he has 85% of the role. This is not a case of Nnamdi Kanu that was literally kidnapped on the shores of Kenya and bundled back into Nigeria. We do not know the process. We do not know how it was done. You can see when that was to happen to Igboho, the Republic of Benin said, no, we have our laws here because they have their laws. And the Nigerian treaty of 1984 between Ghana, Republic of Benin, Togo, and Nigeria shows that you cannot simply come there and take away Igboho. Igboho's greatest defense will be that he's being persecuted for a political offense, and that under Article 1 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights and Article 20 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, that is entitled to ask for self-determination for his people.
Well, Mr. Ozekhome, you have already differentiated between...
To seek asylum in another country.
You have differentiated between a political and a criminal case. Well, I want to believe that this one is being looked at different. It's not a political case, is it?
Yeah, I do not see this one at all as political.
Okay.
No.
And I think that differentiation is extremely important.
It's very important. This is not political. This is a case of talking about money laundering under the Money Laundering Act, that Hush Puppy transfers some money to Abba Kyari to allegedly, listen to my word, allegedly deal with another opponent for him of his with whom he had a disagreement, and that they intercepted some wire messages and all that.
So that differentiation is extremely important.
It's very important.
We're talking about the
this
Kanu,
is purely a criminal matter.
Yes. And also the Sunday
I just wanted to
case.
make that difference to show that this is different from that.
We're totally out of time, Mr. Ozekhome. I have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning and shedding light on this particular matter. Mr. Michael Ozekhome is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's been speaking with us here in our Abuja studios. We've also been joined by Mr. Richard Ivie, who is the executive director of the Corruption Observatory. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning and sharing your thoughts as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
We'll take a break at this moment and we'll be back shortly.